Welcome to the PantheonPlus Rewind. He's back. Welcome to another episode of the Rewind, and thanks to all of you that listen to us weekly for your support. Omega, welcome back to the team. We missed you, buddy. How have you been?
Busy, man, but life is calmed down again for me, so I'm really looking forward to being back on the show.
That's awesome, man. We're happy to have you here. And I'm not sure if you know this, but last week, Theric actually stole your loot because you weren't here.
Stole in quotation marks. I got a good price on it, so I'll have you know I sold it.
You know, that's fair. I'm sure we'll split it down the line.
That's right.
I don't know about that. Well, we're happy to have you back in action with us to get our full team going here. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it. This week in Visionary Realms news and notes. So a lot of VR news this week. Well, not a lot, but one really big one, I guess you'd say. And the biggest news of the week was the release of the May 2020 newsletter, in which Ben Dean highlighted some important achievements, such as like getting the Dire Lord completed in the new node system, as well as discussing implementation of a lot of the UI elements and quest entry things that we've heard about or seen in previous streams. However, the big news didn't stop there, as we were given two large quotes regarding Pre-Alpha 5, which I'm going to read now quickly. So he said, "What's the bottom line when looking at this all together? It means our monolithic milestone will be completed this summer. Even better, we can now schedule a solid date for the next round of game access for pre-alpha pledges. We have an internal target date, and we will share it with our Pantheons when it is a few weeks away." He continued by saying, "When it comes to the test, our pre-alpha testers, please be ready to," and he put in bold, "test for the first of the sessions for pre-alpha 5. As much as we want to get your feedback on organic gameplay, we will start by setting a specific focus for each test session. This is an important part of the process because we need to ensure that everything works on a massive live scale before we can stamp it ready for alpha consideration. That being said, after the focus tests, there will be opportunity to get in and play organically." So this obviously gave us our first solid indication to when to expect PA5, which is exciting. Knowing that there's an internal date set and that they've confirmed the completion of Project Fairthale will be by summer's end, I can't express how excited I got over this information. And I decided the last little bit I needed to spend money here, which I don't really have, to upgrade to pre-alpha VIP. So I did do that, and that is now a future minus problem that he can figure out how to deal with. How did this make you guys feel? Were you as hyped up as I was from this announcement? Theric?
For sure. I like that they broke it down. He was very clear. Ben Dean was very clear about what each testing phase, the purpose of it is, and sort of where it's going to be focused. So I like that. I like that there's sort of a horizon to look at now in terms of end of the summer. That still wasn't, it's obviously they're not being as specific as they could possibly be with a very exact date, but it does certainly sound like it's close, and always happy to hear that.
Omega, what do you think?
I'm the same as you guys, very, very stoked. And I wish I had like $1,200 right now that I could drop to get to VIP status.
Yeah, I don't have it, but I figured it out. I spent some time on the street corner, so.
Yeah, that might have to be something I do too. I'm just really stoked for, like, even though it's not a real date, but like Theric said, there's a horizon, we can see something that's going to be coming out real soon. So it's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really excited about it. So, but yeah, that's it for that. So let's hope we're all checking out pre-alpha, and then that gets us to alpha. So, the next thing here was on their Twitter, and it was one of our community posts that they usually put out there, and they just kind of ask a question and get people talking. And this one was pretty simple. It said, "Cosmetic pets, yay or nay, and why?" And I wanted to start this on a rather somber note here, but it's also a really big shout out to my friend Lexer, who had the following response. So let me read that first. He put, "Normally, nay. However, with today possibly having to put my furry friend to sleep, I'm going to have to say yay, just because I'd do anything to keep her with me in some form." Very heartfelt response there from Lexer. Big cat guy, and he's unfortunately had a couple of his cats have to be put down, and it's been pretty tough for him and his family. And I just want to admit it right here that I got a lot of love for you, but my brother, Lexer, You're an amazing community member, and I know you always do anything for anyone at a drop of a dime. So to all the fans out there who support us and all the fans of Pantheon, I know he's hurting. It'd be really awesome for the community to send him some love, help him get through this. So Lexer, we're here for you, buddy, and maybe we can convince them to put some cat in there that looks like yours, because that would be awesome. It also makes me think that, sometimes we're really quick to say yes or no to a feature in a game, but we don't realize that something that wouldn't affect us either way, like pets, could mean the world to somebody else, even just for a moment. And sometimes I think we have to get out of our own heads when we're thinking about what additions are in a game. And if it's something that doesn't affect us negatively, but can affect others positively, I think we got to sometimes give that a thumbs up. So just my little 2 cents there. And Lexer, buddy, thoughts and prayers of the family there. You guys getting through this. And if you ever need anything, we're here for you. So to jump back to the responses here, let's get to some of the other ones. Micah here says, I always liked having a dog by my side in game or IRL. So give me a few dogs to choose from and I will be a happy man. Alicera, who's a streamer, said, yes, I do love little pets to follow me around and collect. My favorites are the collection checkoff of lists. So she just checks off lists as she's getting them. But ones that I save from horrible fates, or maybe I make them or find them hiding in a secret spot. So she likes the ones that you don't just check off. I kind of said that wrong, but she likes the ones that you find that are hard to get. NathanNapalm surprised me with his answer. He said, I never wanted a pet unless it was part of the class. The dragon pet for Dragoon was epic, but it was part of the class. Cosmetic pets I have given 0 craps about. Again, that shocked me. But hey, there's Nathan's opinion. Bazgrim said, not necessarily at all. I've been known to collect some of them in games for fun, but really they just create lag in large quantities. It's not like it's that great of a reward. Plus, people tend to associate this sort of thing with garbage cash shop rewards, which we'll talk about that later. Zergjerk said, no, if they wander around with you in the world. Yes, if they're in the housing area, your house, the guild hall, they just clutter, take away performance, and give nothing to the game whatsoever. I'd rather add ambient wildlife instead. Irritable Twit, which I love that name, his Twitter name, he says, big no for me. I think pets should have a purpose in games such as support, tank, or FPS. If you have to load a lot of useless chihuahuas or fluffy bunnies around, it just serves as a distraction. Unless you can burn them. Mwahaha. Jimmy Lee Jingle says, at some type of reward, like a rare drop or a quest that rewards some type of experience or in-game currency, they can be very cool. But if it's something that can just be bought, then it's really not my thing. Project Valhalla said, firm no, but then followed up immediately and said, on second thought, it would be kind of cool if they had a meaningful quest line to develop an interesting backstory for the illusion. It needs to be difficult to achieve, so when someone sees the pet, they can admire it. Absolutely no cash shop cosmetic, though. Again, right to the cash shop. This is a really great point by Dave. DFowler70 says, I'm married to a female gamer and she absolutely loves cosmetic stuff. Remember, women make up a good portion of your target audience. Seamus Redfern said, yes, yay, or nay or yay, because everyone needs a friend for moral support, even if it's just out gathering mats or crafting. And finally, my answer to it was, I've had a lot of pets in WoW, but I really never used them. When bored or for a laugh, sometimes I'll pull out a rare one. See, the thing is, not everyone likes every one of these types of quote unquote collection systems. But collection is really important to MMOs and gives you something else to do. And, everybody, I was set up top there, people are like, oh, this leads to the cash shop. Stop. Theric, I feel like every week we have to talk about this, that every single thing that people want in game, people go to the absolute extreme. World of Warcraft had a cash shop that had no impact on the game whatsoever. And I think it had maybe a total of 10 pets you could buy at one point. It had 0 impact on the game at all. Let's stop with the insanity of going to the absolute worst case scenario that everybody does. But I will stop my rant. Theric, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm not sure you're going to like my answer based on what you just said, because they are associated with cash shops in my mind. There is a direct connection there. I don't have a problem with them, in general, in theory, it's fine. And I agree with a lot of the points that were made. I think we do have to respect other people. Other people want different things. And if some people enjoy pets, we should respect that. But the problem is that they have traditionally been tied to cash shops. And how I feel about cash shops. It's probably my number one issue. with MMOs these days. So while I'll say yes, that's fine if they want to do cosmetic pets. I'm all for collections too. I enjoy collecting things, and as a ranger, I want to have a pet. I mean, it sort of fits my class, as long as it's a part of the world and not tied to something external. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Omega, what are your thoughts on that?
Pretty similar to Theric and what other people are saying. Not to bring up the cash shop again, but I don't like cash shops either. I really like in-game systems where like you have to tame a pet, where you can tame something from in the world. There's a couple games that have done that. I do like pets that do something, like in BDO, they would collect your gold and stuff for you. I know that's a whole other topic of micromanaging stuff, but in general, like I don't have a problem with it. Like people want pets, they can have pets. And I really like having pets at my house in BDO. I don't really see them when they're running around with me doing the game, but you see other people's pets all the time. Whether or not that's a huge decrease on performance, I don't know. People brought up points about that, and I think that's very valid if it is a problem. And if it is, like maybe there's a way, like client side, you could turn that off. I think there is in some games, you can turn off other people's pets. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that, MMOs give people the tools to role play or live out some sort of character and be in another world. So anything that people can have to have the choice to do something, I think it's important.
Good points from both of you guys there. I can't remember a time that I couldn't play a game or go into an area and I got lagged out because there were pets everywhere. I can't remember a situation where that's ever happened. Maybe my computer was strong. I don't know. All right, well, that's it for the VR news and notes.
When the community speaks, we listen. Let's dig into social media and see what they're talking about.
So we're going to go over to the PantheonMMO.com forums, and we're going to start with a post this week that is so well written and thought out that I just had to include it. And it actually stands on its own without any sort of discussion. It's a long post, and I am going to read the whole thing because it's worthy of that. The title of the post is called "The Value of Toys in Play," and it's by Astral Echo. So while that might not make the subject immediately clear, here's what the post says, and you'll get it as I sort of read this. So Astral Echo said, quote, "By now, most of us are familiar with the categorization of MMOs, theme park, sandbox, or even sandpark and theme box. I've often seen EverQuest regarded as the father of all theme parks, but as I sit here pining for Pantheon and reflecting on why, I realize none of these labels fit. Looking at it from either extreme, if a theme park means a carefully curated and isolated content meant to be digested as designed, and a sandbox means a blank slate world left to the player imagination and construction, neither of these labels seem applicable. Even if we try to fit early EQ somewhere in the middle, it's not like the game ever had all that much quote-unquote sand with which to build, but neither were its rides ever on rails or self-contained. If such labels are necessary, and EverQuest might be best regarded in a class all its own, or at least one shared with only a few select titles from a similar generation. And what he calls it is a playground. So we have to sort of, imagine things, try and compare EverQuest to a playground, and this is what he says. So like a child at a playground, a player starting in EverQuest is ushered forward with little more than the tools or toys and their imagination. At an early age, they may be cautioned against tackling challenges beyond their ability. But just as a toddler can find their way onto the monkey bars, nothing prevents a low-level player from stumbling into Befallen, even if it inevitably ends with a bruised knee. But in the course of that journey, the player may get a glimpse of the big kids effortlessly overcoming those challenges, and themselves be inspired towards one day doing the same. To the degree that EverQuest's dungeons and quests may have constituted rides, they were far closer to the experience of climbing on a jungle gym than riding Space Mountain. There were no queues, your experience was not limited to a 4-seater car, and you were free to go in whichever direction you pleased. And yes, sometimes you might climb into the top and find a bully has already claimed the slide for himself and his friends. Thankfully, we know Pantheon plans to adhere closely to this sort of playground philosophy in designing its world and dungeons. But something I haven't seen discussed are what are the tools or the toys that we get to interface with in this world. So what he says is among my many frustrations with modern MMOs is none perhaps so great as the way class toolkits have been pared down solely to their value in combat. The fantasy of your being a sorcerer extends only as far as the number of fireballs at your disposal. Your interactions with the world around you are restricted to which enemies need to be slaughtered to fulfill the next quest on your shopping list. He misses the utility that the toys enabled from a class fantasy to exist in the world at large. He misses necromancers existing as liches, trees that were actually disguised druids casting Spirit of the Wolf on random passersby, and infiltrating places where he was killed on sight under the guise of another race. So those are just a few examples. So he says, in order for the playground to reach its full potential, we need toys that amplify our imaginations and change the way we interact with it. So what toys do you want to see in Pantheon? Okay, so I just love that analogy. I love that idea. The playground concept is pretty much spot on in my mind, and I hope this is really how VR is conceptualizing Pantheon. As for some of the toys, one of the responses in the forums was from somebody who played a wizard and thought about things like the spell Bind Sight or Identify and a couple others. And if I'm thinking back to my experiences, I think of things as a ranger as things like sense heading, tracking, and foraging are ways that I interacted with the world like in a non-combat and interesting way. So looking at the class skills and spells, it definitely seems like VR gets this and they're making an effort to implement this kind of interaction. So you guys, what do you think? Do you like the playground sort of descriptor as opposed to a theme park or a sandbox? And then what kind of toys do you want to see in Pantheon? And since you've been away for so long, Omega, I'm start with you. What do you think?
Oh man, I think that is a really good descriptor, playground. Just as you were reading that, like I haven't read this beforehand, so that was the first time I was kind of hearing it. And it makes a lot of sense to me, like you're introduced into this world, you step onto the sand, and then there's all these things to choose from. As for toys, man, I have to think about that.
I had a hard time coming up with those too. I had to sort of really sit back and wonder, like, okay, it's really interesting. Like, yeah, what are those non-combat things that we had available to us? And the Wizards did have quite a few of them, and I couldn't think of any others. So.
Yeah, and like I'm really interested in the Ranger, just like you, and they have quite a bit of things like a scouting pet, and like you said, like sense heading, tracking, and all that kind of stuff. Ah, man, I'm having a hard time thinking like on the spot what kind of toys, because it's just something I've never experienced before.
Fair enough.
So maybe move on from me, and if I have a spark of imagination, I'll come back.
Okay, yeah. Minus, what do you think? Do you like this analogy?
Yeah, I actually really like it a lot. I mean, when we started, I think it was one of our first episodes of the Rewind, we kind of talked about the difference between theme park and sandbox, I think, or we did that at some point. And I remember just saying to myself, like, I've heard these terms for so long, but I've never really like learned what they actually mean. So it's a really, really good post. I'm really happy you read that. He did a great job with that. It makes a lot of sense. And I started thinking of like illusion eyes. I know World of Warcraft had that. Like you had a little eyeball you could send out and look around with. I mean, as a rogue, I'm nothing but toys. I mean, when done right? I mean, even stealth can be seen as a toy. One of the things I've talked about with, and you brought up the example of going into places you shouldn't be in. One of the first things I want to do when Pantheon starts is do streams where I just strip my gear down and I just see where I can go, and sneak around and take people with me to these places we shouldn't be in. And with stealth, I can do that. And, I have pickpocket, disarm, traps. Rogues are so many toys. And I know you brought up wizards, but rogues have toys like crazy. So it's a really good post. He did a great job with that. And like, I'm actually smiling over here, like just cause it's a great way to put it. And the way that he even talked about the bully taking the slide.
Yes, I know. Right.
Right. We've all been there before. And, no, just a really well thought out post. And it's interesting because as a society, we're so into labeling things and we want to put everything in a box as much as we can to relate it to everything else. And when we do it, we often strip away some of what makes something unique by trying to just put it in this small box. So he did a really good job talking about that. I thought that was a really well thought out post.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page because I really liked it as well. Okay, so this week the Pantheon community grew quite a bit. I actually had to shorten the number of introductions that I was going to read here, but we had at least 5 new people introduce themselves over on the Pantheon forums. So I'll give you a quick shout out to the people who came on board and just a fun fact about them. First up, Gatto introduced himself. He's a veteran of EverQuest and EverQuest 2 and Vanguard, and he's encouraged by what he sees from the team at VR. As well, Cress joined up. He talked about going back to World of Warcraft on and off, and sometimes scratching the itch, but most of the time not. Ezen Krull came out to say Pantheon is only the second crowd-funded MMO he's backed, and he's really interested in what it has to offer. Leonidas put down some cash for a pledge and talked about his background with EverQuest Online Adventures, which is one of the few ones that I don't have any experience with, and how he's actually developing network code for EQOA emulation server, which I know some people would be interested in knowing. Inusa said that they like the feeling of being unique in an MMO, and that's what got him interested in Pantheon. And then lastly, Jason, also known as Jasones, stepped out of the lurker shadows and gave us an intro. And I'm going to read part of it because it's really quite funny, and there's a little tidbit I like here. So he just said, "Hi, my name is Jason. I go by Jasones. I guess you could say my lurking problem started back in 2016. He's checked in or followed some updates here and there, but the most recent video from PantheonPlus really got me hyped and wanting to get involved. And Omega, I think you and I can both agree that when Minus gets hyped for something, it's hard not to get hyped too."
Yeah, absolutely. Excitement is infectious, and positivity for sure.
Exactly. Very infectious. That's what I was going to say too. Anyway, Jason goes on to share a funny story about his MMO background, stating, "I loved Ultima Online at the time. So anytime he PK'd somebody, he took a screenshot and would post it to his website, which he eventually got a domain. And that's how his career in MMO started. So 16 years later, apparently he's still in the business of doing that. So with all these new members of the community and hearing their stories, this is the lifeblood of a game like Pantheon. And I've said that before. And friend of the show and our collaborator extraordinaire, Drac Attack, let everyone know that if they wanted to get a Pantheon profile done, to reach out to him. And so if you're listening to this and that's something that interests you as well, touch base with Drac. He has his site, PantheonBlog.com. And I'll put his social media links in the description as well. So get those Pantheon profiles done. And just on a side note, if anybody doesn't think VR is listening and knows how important it is to sort of go over to the forums and check in with some of the new folks, Convo, who's a VR employee, I don't remember his exact title, but anyway, he just dropped a quick note in there saying he can't help but notice those people who are consistently jumping in to welcome new members of the community, and he just wanted to reach out and thank everyone for making a better place because of your hospitality. So he really appreciates it. So yeah, great job, guys. And from there, we will go over to Reddit, and we're going to break the trend of poll questions from Spark's interface this week and go a different direction. We got a really good nostalgic discussion about starter cities and race from Reddit Shaman Halfwise 2. So his question was, quote, "I'm wondering how the initial concept of one race, one city is holding up at the moment. I personally love the idea of each race having its own starter city or newbie area, but that trend has always been towards less, likely due to cost and time constraints. I believe EQ started with something like 13 starter cities, and they proceeded to add a starter city for each new race. Later, due to population, it started putting everyone in one location, the tutorial area, and then Crescent Reach. So he goes on to detail how some other well-known MMOs have done this, with, again, the trend being towards less rather than more in terms of starter areas. And then he says Pantheon, on the other hand, will have 9 races. So that means 9 starter cities. And I'd love to see that occur, but the question is, will it happen? Plans can change during development, budgets get tight, time dwindles, and so on and so forth. So do we think that we will make it all the way to 9 starter cities? And do you think some will be cut? And then do you care if we have 9 or 5 or 2? So here's what the community thought. So Bazgrim, who is always the ultimate source of Pantheon knowledge, stepped up and said, each race in Pantheon does have a starting city. The devs have recently said this is still the plan for the rest of the world, and it's being built around this concept. It would take a catastrophic shift in scope to change that. Anything's possible, but it's really not something that's likely need to be worried about. And he actually listed every race's starting city for those that want to know. Nuba said, that's good to hear. It makes me feel like it's an actual world. It's hard to achieve that with just 2 or 3 cities. TR DeLacy said, I really like the idea behind having multiple starting cities, each with their own newbie zones. It was great in EverQuest initially. The problem with that design is that the majority of these zones can become empty as players advance further out in the world unless there's a constant influx of new players. And the zones are designed to hold multiple tiers and levels within them. And that actually is something that VR has commented on, and I think that they are planning to design with that in mind. Jobiza187 said, I believe they'll have a newbie area right outside each race's city. It will help make the world larger by having these lobby areas outside every city gate. The Lost Cause said, I really enjoyed the starter cities in EQ. Felt like a nice natural progression when you left your home at level 8 or so, which I would agree with. Xantub said maybe they should add a race-specific quest so that you return home to your home city every 10 levels or so. Echolocation 8 said, I don't see the development of major cities as useless. They just sort of need to be equitable. This is a really good point that he makes here, actually. He says, namely, if there are things that people sort of rely or want, they should all be sort of designed in a similar way. And if we think back to EverQuest, remember the bank location in some cities was super easily accessed and to get to, and some others it was like buried deep, under 30 layers of city. It was really out of the way. So I get that point, and I think it's a good one. There might be some issues with that, of course. Illuminary 3 said, a thought to prevent some of the emptiness of starter cities could be to place dungeons near cities. You think back to like Guk being near Grob, which is the ogre starting city in EverQuest. They could also have some mid to high level quests per zone, unlocking some as you level, or as your faction increases or decreases. And then lastly, Botlane and Shell said, I don't think every race, given that there's quite a lot, needs their own starting city, as long as it's explained in the lore and there are other places, so like parts of another race's city or camps out in the wild, to support their aesthetic. So, I mean, my take on this is I definitely hope VR sticks to the plan of having every race have a starter city, even if they're not as detailed as, like, if some are less developed than others. So, like, Suroa, the Archeage starting city, wouldn't be as huge and intricate as Thronefast, the human starting city, which is fine. I do think it's important that every race has a home base, so to speak. So if I'm playing a human and I want to travel, I want to see other places, right? I mean, I want to go and see the other starting cities or the home areas for other races. But that's my adventuring sort of spirit. But what do you guys think? Does that work for you? And do you think 9 starting areas is too much? Minus, what do you think?
No, I really like it a lot. And you actually hit on the biggest point I wanted to make right towards the end there was just about, every city doesn't need to be as full featured as the other. And I think that's okay. Like, the gnomes, from what we know, like live around their crashed ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's not going to be like Thronefast, you would think. So there is an interesting comparison to having like home cities and having hubs. I don't think every home city needs to be a hub. I think every home city should be there to start at, to kind of start your journey, to go out into the world. But I don't think that it's super important that, everybody's constantly in the gnome city. If Thronefast is a hub for the positive races or the good quote unquote races, then that's fine. It does, if you have, if there's 9 races and you have 4 hubs that are, populated and popular, I'm really okay with that. I'm okay with there being some cities that you only go to from a nostalgia point, or that one guy said, maybe a quest line takes you back. That kind of stuff I really like. But I don't think, that you have to all spend as much time in the, Scar area as you do in Thronefast, for example. So that's my thought.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that the one thing that stuck out to me in the comments was the idea of, everybody starting in the same sort of one centralized location, right? I think it was called Crescent something from EverQuest after it's, in its later years. That idea just really, I don't enjoy that idea. I think everybody should start at different places. But Omega, what about you?
As someone who has a serious alt problem, I really like the idea of different starting areas for all the races. And yeah, I agree with what Mina said and what some other people are saying, is that like the starting towns, they don't need to be these giant, elaborate things that have every single thing in them, but they should have flavor to that race. They should make sense within the lore. And then there should be, down the line, maybe level 10 or whatever, you reach a big hub city. And to me, that makes more sense, like from a real world analog view and like just what I like about games. I think my most experience would be Star Wars The Old Republic, and like 2 classes I think shared a starting zone. Every two classes had their own starting zone, and then your hub was kind of like the big spaceport once you got to level 10. And that's where all the cool stuff happened for trading and banking and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my point.
Yeah. No, I'm big on the flavor part too. Like they should be visually distinct. Have a different sort of aesthetic, and you should feel like it's your home, right? If you want to play an Archeige, if you want to play a gnome, you should feel that sense of connection to that starting location. So yeah, good points, guys. And then we'll finish up over on Facebook. The Facebook community continues to just grow and grow. The thing that I notice about Facebook mostly is it's a good place to just ask general questions. So if you just, if you feel like you're new to following Pantheon and you don't know a lot about it and you're not sure, sometimes the forums aren't, the most best place to do that, and maybe Reddit. But Facebook is a good place, I think, to go and just ask a general question. And there's so many people over there that, and Chase Masters does such a good job of moderating those communities. You shouldn't be afraid to pop in and just ask a question, or even just to say hi. So go and give them a check out. And that's it for this week's community discussions.
Just what are those creators up to out there?
All right, so let's talk about the content creators. And as we always do, we'll start with us here at PantheonPlus. And this is a funny one for me. So we started the week, we declared it was a week off to get organized. We'd actually had quite a bit happen, however. So to begin with, I was very fortunate to have a discussion with Chris Joppa Perkins, that you guys know, on Discord around the mastery system, and was even more fortunate. I was like, hey, can I share this out? And he's like, heck yeah, man, go for it. So put a small little video out that was a little impromptu Q&A with Chris, which was awesome of him. Thank you for that. And gave a little bit of clarity to the mastery system, so you guys can check that out on our YouTube page. Shortly after that, like a day later, we had the big news drop on that newsletter we talked about, and we put out a video for that, so you can check that out. And then, so we got the news from Valor that their affiliate program was starting. And I believe we are the first, I think, I might be wrong, don't quote me on that, to become affiliates with the new MMORPG Valor. It was pretty exciting for us because I know our community is getting more and more excited about the game. And Theric and I have talked multiple times about how much we've enjoyed this experience. So it should mean that some exciting things are coming going forward. If you end up wanting to test the game or support it, please use the link we shared in our Discord to check out Valor, so they know we sent you. That link will be put in the comments for YouTube here as well for this show. And to add to the Valor fun, just today, actually, during the recording, so yesterday, I guess I should say, to be accurate, Theric put out a lore video detailing the first ever lore release for the game. And get into it with us, learn that lore, check it out. And if you're excited about it, hopefully we see you in pre-alpha, because they're actually having a pre-alpha test next weekend. Theric, any thoughts on any of that? That was pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's really exciting. The lore video was fun to do. It's quick and easy. It's like 5.5 minutes, I think. So it doesn't take a lot of your time. And the lore is, we're right at the starting point. So if you're interested in sort of, learning a game from the ground up from a lore perspective, it's a good time to sort of check it out and get in with it. And like you said, Minus, I can't wait to play that game again. I want to get in there and run around and have some fun with you. So yeah.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, we will be doing a lot of live streaming next weekend for the game, so you guys can check us out playing that. I also finished up a video highlighting what I called 5 reasons I was excited for Defend the Night. Just something I've been wanting to do for a while. We've been talking about Defend the Night, I think, almost on every single one of these Rewind podcasts. And I've just been into the game for a while. I know the guys, I talked to them quite a bit, so that was a fun video to put together. Also, in getting organized, we had time to clean up our images and logos for various projects we are doing or will do. We updated our Twitch channel to give it a little fresh look, and also announced sort of candidly, with just putting the logo on our Twitch channel and not talking about it at all at first, a new show coming out called Rank 'em. So that is official now. We'll be doing this on Twitch. It's a 3-person panel every week. You'll find myself and Micah as permanent co-hosts, and we're going to have a special guest every week. So this upcoming Tuesday will be our first show as Micah Lexer, who's our special guest, and myself rank our top 5 MMORPGs of all time. Should be a lot of really good banter. Everybody likes a ranked list because everyone disagrees. So come hang out in the chat and argue your points and harass people who have bad picks. The website update. Oh boy, it's close. And I really mean that. I'm not just saying that. Poiru has been killing it. As of our last update, we have a fully functioning comment system, a voting system, and multiple quality of life fixes have been made. I basically put out this huge list for him to do, and he almost knocked it all out in 2 days. So he's finishing a couple little things, really simple things, and probably this weekend we're going to do a final look over for just tiny little easy cleanup things that'll probably be able to be done in a conversation. So the website is super close. It might be this weekend. If not, it's going to be early this upcoming week, I really feel like. Hopefully we don't mess up anything or find any bugs. And lastly, a little bit of news. I was really at first looking forward to jumping into the Eridune server A lot of the people in the community want to check it out. I'm not going to be able to do that with the new show format. A lot of content on our plate, and I got hired finally to a job I was trying to get. I really don't want to overload or promise something I can't deliver on. I feel like if I do the Aerodune server stream, it'll be like the one day it comes out, and I probably won't touch it. So right now, I'm just going to say we probably won't be doing that. And with Valor having a test weekend, as we just talked about, I mean, that's going to be my main gameplay focus. I'm really excited for that. So I do apologize to those people that were looking to play with me or see us stream it, but that doesn't mean as a community, the Pantheon Plus community can't get something going. Anybody who needs help getting the word out, if somebody makes a guild, just let me know. Moving forward, Bazgrim had the Baz Flash came back. It's been a little bit, but we got the Baz Flash to talk about the pre-alpha news. And he also announced that we're having a video being developed by him that looks like it'll talk about class synergy. So that'll be pretty fun. NathanNapalm put out an updated video that really gave a deep dive into what exactly Pantheon is for people who may have just discovered it. It's a really good watch where he digs into why he's so hyped about the game. He also put out a video talking about MMORPGs he's most excited for. And he did a video on Defend the Night as well as we did. So a little different than ours, obviously, but really good watch there. And he did also just put out a video talking about the pre-alpha announcement. So if you like Nathan and his excitement level, check that out. And finally, BattleAxTheater had a great discussion on Bat Live in which they dug into the topic of longevity and reusable items in gear in MMORPGs. It's a really good discussion because no one likes gear to be discarded right away for the next piece that drops. Like essentially, if you work really hard for a piece, you should have it for a while. But at the same time, it really feels bad to have too long a time in between upgrades. So it's a really good, interesting discussion you guys can check out. And don't forget, if you want to watch their shows live, you can do that every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern to check out Bat Live. And that's it for the content creators this week.
The Plus in Pantheon Plus. Here's your MMORPG news.
All right, so on to the genre news. First up, Saga of Lucimia has hired an MMO veteran onto their team, and that vet is Bob Brown. I'm signed up to their newsletter, and they sent out an email on May 16th detailing the addition to their team. And they had this to say, quote, "The team at Stormhaven Studios is excited to announce that Bob Brown has joined us as an advisor to help support the launch of Saga of Lucimia. Bob is an experienced global sales executive with over 20 years of experience in the gaming industry. He spent more than 8 years as Blizzard's Entertainment VP of Global Sales and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in the commercial launch of video games, including World of Warcraft. We're very grateful that Bob believes enough in our team and our game come on board and make Saga of Lucimia a success."
So, really super interesting point here that you guys wouldn't have known. I know Bob Brown. I wouldn't say I'm super close friends with Bob, but I have some of the craziest stories when I worked with GameStop as a store manager and a GM or DM. We hung out till like 5 a.m. Playing football in a cricket court area, which we ruined in the hotel. I was part of some of their convention shows. They brought me up to do like a Conan O'Brien style skit on stage with them after a night I was out way too long, and that was rough. And he actually got me into Friends and Family of Diablo when Diablo 3 came out for Friends and Family only testing. That is so crazy because I didn't read this in advance, and it's insane because when I saw Bob Brown, I'm like, no. And then was I reading more with Blizzard's VP? He actually originally started with Vivendi before Vivendi got bought up. That is the craziest thing. I'm going to reach out to him like ASAP, but I just had to throw that out there that this guy's awesome. And I have a long relationship with him. So again, sorry to get you off your game a little bit there, but it blew my mind when I read it. So good stuff looking into that.
Next up, Star Citizen. They're having a free fly event from May 22nd to June 1st. If you check out the website, you can see details about the new ships that will be available to try out, because every couple of days, a new selection of ships will rotate in. I will say this about these free fly events. It's not always obvious to new players like how to get in on the free ships. And I'm only going off of previous experience from the other free fly events, and my memory is spotty at best, so forgive me if my details are slightly off. But when you sign in for a free account, you'll have access to one of their starter ships, and then you'll have to quickly learn how to fly and do things in the game to leave the spawn zone and head for a planet called ArcCorp, as far as I remember. Once you get to ArcCorp Spaceport, there's a sort of car dealership showroom there where you get to look around at the ships and choose which one you want to try. And then once you pick it, you go to the launch area, you launch it like any other ship. The community of Star Citizen is very noob friendly at this point. So any questions you have, just chime in the global chat and someone can help you out for sure. But I will say nothing in Star Citizen really has like waypoints like a regular game, unless it's a mission or a planet and you can kind of get a waypoint to where you're going. So once you land in ArcCorp, you really have to approach the city like you're navigating a real life city that you're visiting for the first time. You got to check around for signage and directional markers, and you'll find your way, and you'll likely discover the experience is so immersive, for lack of a better word, that the game will just feel very different to other MMOs. The level of detail in their world really makes the game feel alive. So if you are interested in Star Citizen at all, I urge you to find the time and the space on your SSD to try it out. Now is a great time to actually play the game because there's an actual game to play there. Ever since 3.5, it's been in a really playable state. I know as a group, the PantheonPlus community really does the fantasy MMO thing, but do either of you guys have any interest in Star Citizen? Theric, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely do want to give it a shot. It's not the space fantasy sims have never been my jam too much, but there are a few of those kinds of games that I have enjoyed. So I think the more I hear about the free sort of trial, the free sort of weekends that Star Citizen is offering, I do get more and more interested in trying it. So I think I'm going to actually go ahead and follow up on that and check it out.
Right on. Minus, what do you think?
No, I don't. I'm not too big into the space stuff. Even like movies and stuff. Like I'll watch a few different sci-fi things if they like crossover. But that's why I've never been like a huge fan of like Star Wars and stuff. It does look really cool. The graphics look crazy for some of the stuff they're doing. I know that that's a genre that people do love. So like more power to them for doing what they're doing. And it's raised a freaking ridiculous amount of cash. So if it's not good, like there's going to be, if you think there's pitchforks for those games that are closing that haven't raised much, I mean, you're going to have a full-on attack on their headquarters if they don't put a good game out. But so good luck to them. They got the cash for it. It looks like they're taking their time to make it right. But honestly, no, it's not an aesthetic that really pleases me, I guess.
Fair enough. A final note I will say about Star Citizen, it is a bit of a graphic beast at the moment. Back when I only had a GTX 970, like I could play in solo mode in the game fine, but once you went into the online world, like it was 15 FPS, sometimes as low as 3. But on my 1080 Ti, I get some pretty great frames. So if you guys are looking to check it out, maybe don't bother if you don't have anything about a 1080 worth of power in your machine there. Next, Archeage Unchained. If a space MMO isn't quite your speed, Archeage Unchained is also having a free weekend from May 21st to the 25th. I'm sure most people here know what Archeage is, so we really don't have to cover that bit, but I will say if you don't know, and that if you enjoy a game like Rift, like we've been playing, and its class system, you might like Archeage as well. I bought into the relaunch of Unchained, but I didn't really play it too much. I didn't have anyone to enjoy it with, so it's a good-looking game, albeit a bit generic, and has a really fun combat system and a class system where you pick, your 3 archetypes, and that kind of shapes your overall class. Lots of different combos you can make, try out. I'm going to be updating my install. I think it's actually done now. So if anyone is curious enough to jump in and try it, let me know. I'll be around this weekend to do that. The combat is almost like Terra. It's very similar. It does have combos and all that, but not exactly the same. I think as the Pantheon Plus community is doing some game hopping, it's worth for you guys to check out because it is free. And Minus, I know you played quite a bit of the original Archeage when it launched in North America. Is there anything off the top of your head you would say to people who are thinking about trying it out?
Yeah, the game was the leveling and like getting to max level and exploring and like all of that was really good in the game. Like I really enjoyed the leveling experience, the class experience. If you're a crafter, I don't know if there's a better game than this. I mean, you can grow your own farms and buy land, and you can join guilds that have land, and you can harvest crops and gather. Like there's people who in our guild I was in were nothing but farmers. They literally didn't leave the farms. They tended the farms. They planted stuff. They went and got expanding the land when they could and bid on like mortgages for land. It was insane how much the crafting in that game matters. So if you're a crafting fan, it's amazing. The problem I had with the game is that when you got towards the max level of the game, it's very PvP. I'll give you a quick story here. Like one of my buddies was in the best guild in the NA, like the best, and the best guild in the game was Brazilian. And and this was a while back, and they had an alliance. So there was this boss out in the middle of the ocean. It was a big kraken. And to fight it, you had to get all your boats made. And then you take your crew out there and you fight this kraken on your boats. Well, it's out in the middle of the ocean. So all the pirates, because people could be two factions or they could actually align to being pirates. So all the pirates out there would just kill anyone trying to kill this boss. So this boss couldn't get killed. So the Brazilian guild actually talked to his guild, this NA guild, and said, we need your help. So this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I wasn't involved in it. I just watched a part of it and I heard about the rest. It was essentially this Brazilian guild circled the Kraken in the middle of the ocean with all their boats. And then my buddy's NA guild took all their boats and formed a larger circle around them to protect them from pirates and people coming in trying to disrupt the fight. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in like this style of an MMO. That's almost like level of like Eve type of like craziness. And that is incredible for people like PvP. For me though, like it was like, man, if I want to do a huge PvE fight, I don't want to have to worry about all these crazies. So like the game got very PvP oriented towards the end, and that's kind of what chased me out. But it was a really fun journey getting to max level.
Nice. Next up, Corepunk. In Corepunk's latest update, the developers go over how enemy mobs and the camps are going to work in their game. And I think this is an important update for them to make and a clarification because unlike most other ARPG games, Corepunk isn't the same kind of roll through the zone, spamming your AoE skills and murdering everything. Their fights are more tactical and some coordination is going to be required. They talk about how the lone wolf player may be able to handle some single enemies or a smaller mob pack that either just roams or springs out of hiding to ambush them. However, the true design behind the game is group play, and all the best loot is in places where players will need to join forces and work together to get it. The more I read about this game, the more it sounds like Pantheon or Defend the Night, which really interests me in Corepunk. Like it's an ARPG that plays, like an MMO. It sounds very cool to me. The quick example they give about a mob camp in this article is about how the enemies will work together and try to exploit the player's weaknesses. Single enemies, like they only have one skill to use, but the tougher ones will have a larger toolkit. And in the mob packs, it'd be like a tank enemy could snare you with a net, and then the assassin types are programmed to flank and attack you once you're rooted. And all the while, the archers are going to be running away to stay at range. So players will have to coordinate and strategize about which enemies to take out first if they want to be victorious. Corepunk looks very interesting for sure, but I do worry that it'll have to work twice as hard to find that player base. Like most people I know who play and enjoy our ARPGs to an extreme degree don't play them because they want a tactical experience. They play to have fast fun, so it'll be interesting, to see what sorts of players gravitate towards this one. I guess you could argue that Albion Online might be a similar game, and myself, I haven't played it too much, so I can't really say. If for those of you who do play Albion and check out Corepunk, maybe let us know in the comments below if there's a lot of similarities or not. And next up, Black Desert Online. I'm really excited about this one, but musical composition has come to BDO. They've added an in-game tool for players to make their own music. I'll say this bit up front that any class can compose and share music, but only the Shy class can actually play the instruments in the game. I hate that. I hate lolly type classes in games. Before I say anything else about the system, I just want to say how dumb that is to lock such a cool thing behind a single class. Especially since it's a new system added years later. Like if it was something they did from the very beginning, then I could understand it. But anyways, so how does the system work? Looking at the screenshots of the editor, it looks a lot like most standard MIDI programs, modern MIDI programs. So you have a list of virtual instruments to choose from, and then a field where you can drop in notes along a piano-type interface. You can change the velocity, for which those who don't or are unfamiliar with MIDI, velocity is more or less like how hard the note is hit by the instrument, so how loud it'll be. Since MIDI is a digital thing, it deals in odd computer values, so velocity value of 127 is actually 100% kind of thing. It's a bit weird to wrap your head around if you're new, but once you get into it, you'll figure it out pretty quick. You can also select your tempo and time signatures, so players will have the tools to create some pretty cool stuff, I think. You'll be able to layer instruments, and at least on paper, looks like you could create some fun stuff. At first, As a Shy, you only get access to beginner-type instruments, but once you hit level 56, you'll get access to higher-tier instruments to use in your compositions. The difference there, I imagine, is that the beginner ones sound less pleasing to the ear than the pro-tier ones you get after you max out your character. And once you're done with your piece of music, you can actually register it within the game, so you can share it with others, and you can even download songs that other people have made. There's quests that are going to involve compositions and playing as well, and your songs will get graded. For me, the grading is a little too simple. It only counts how many bars you have in the music and how many notes you've programmed in, and more notes and bars kind of equals a better score. And in the real world of music, that just isn't true. I mean, it's art, it's subjective. There's a far better ways to score people's compositions than that they could program in, rather than just like how long it is. I won't go into that right now, or else we'd be diving down a deep hole of musical theory. Lastly, the cool thing about this new system to me is the ensemble playing feature. You can create a party of 4 and play these songs as a band. And party leaders, they'll pick the tune, and each person in the party gets an instrument to play. And I think this opens up a lot of great community events that people can put on, like either just an RP event of being in a band and you hang out in a tavern or something, or you can go to the PvP arena and just provide some battle music. Not sure if you can walk while you play in the game, and if you can, maybe you can put on a parade or something silly like that. As a musician and composer myself, I'm really excited about this feature for the game, but now I have to decide if I can stomach grinding a Shy class up to level 56, and I really don't think I can do that. I'd like some of the other MMOs that are being crafted these days to take a look at this system though, and find a way to incorporate it into their game. I know other games have done like music in games before, but where BDO's system is going to be superior is its interface. They took a lot of inspiration from real world audio programs, and I think people are going to find it a lot of fun to just use and be very intuitive.
That sounds super fun.
Yeah,
I would be really into doing something like that. I'm not to hate on BDO. I wish it was sort of in a different game. Maybe it's good, and like you said as well, I wish they didn't put it behind certain things that you have to do to achieve that. Like just make it a thing, I guess. But they have to do that for financial reasons. But it sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, outside of lore, like I don't know why they would lock other classes out from being able to play the music. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, last bit of news, a quick look to the future. Just want to mention a few things that are happening in the next week before the next Rewind episode is going to happen, so you guys can all look forward to it. As we talked earlier, Minus was saying the Air Dune server is going to be launching on the 27th. As far as I know, the server will require a subscription, and I know there is a lot of chatter in the PantheonPlus community about playing, even though Minus isn't going to be able to play or stream it too much. If you are one of those people, just make it known in the Discord, and I'm sure you'll find a group, no problem. Also, Phantasy Star Online 2 will be launching that same day, May 27th. Something great to note about this one is it will feature full crossplay between the Xbox versions, so another great step by Microsoft to shrink that gap between PC and console players. I'll be trying this one out. I've been interested in this one for a long time and waiting for the PC release to come to the West. So, a little further off, June 2nd is the launch of the Greymoor expansion for ESO. Myself and some people from the PantheonMMO RPG Facebook group have a guild going there called Pantheon Patience. So if anyone listening is going to be checking out the Greymoor expansion, let me know and we can get you into the game guild and do some dungeon runs and hopefully the trials as well. And that's all I got for the genre news.
Well, it was awesome to have the whole team back together again today. Omega, we missed you. Awesome input there. A lot more input than we did. So you definitely are the lifeblood of our genre news. So thank you for that. Yeah, really good to have the whole team back. And to everyone out there, definitely let us know what you think. As always, we want your feedback. We want to know what you like, what you don't like. We want to make sure that you enjoy when the Rewind comes out on Sundays. And as always, if you want to watch the premiere, so to speak, of the Rewind on YouTube with us and chat with us, you'll typically have myself and Theric there to chat with, and Omega usually stops by if he wakes up. So please stop by.
So early for me.
It is early. He's time zones. So honestly, guys, you can download it on Spotify, on iTunes. You can go right to the page. Everything is in the links below. So thank you guys for everything you do for us and supporting us, and please let us know what you think. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Be sure to follow Minus and all Pantheon Plus related content at Pantheon Plus on Twitter and Pantheon Plus on both Twitch and YouTube. Follow Theric at PantheonTheric on Twitter, and be sure to follow Omega Contagion at Discord via the name Omega Contagion 6023. And of course, in the Facebook group, Pantheon MMORPG. Until next time.